All right, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a good time at the party yesterday. We're going to kick off this morning with Elizabeth Beasley from Intuit to talk about all the things that she wished she knew before she started the passkey adventure.
Thanks,
So take
Jim.
it away, Elizabeth.
So many things that I wish I knew, so many. I'm so glad y'all are here. Okay, before we start, I think there's probably some people next door, and I want y'all to do a favor with me to make them jealous. And even though we have a small group here, and I know we have people on the internet, in one second, let's just clap really loud and act like we're having the best time. Okay, so everybody clap with me, get excited. Woo-hoo! All right! They're gonna be so jealous. They're like, what are they doing over there? I wanna be doing that. Thank you so much. That helps me get my energy up, which is great, so I appreciate it. I am Elizabeth Beasley. I have slides and stuff. This is fun. I haven't spoken in person in forever. So this is exciting and neat. And once I get this figured out, did y'all have fun partying last night? I feel like let's keep it going, right? It's day 2. I'm gonna try to press this harder. Boom. So yes, it's day 3 of this crazy conference, and we are on the back end, and I really appreciate y'all coming out in the early morning. I hope you got your coffee and you can relax. I'm gonna tell some stories, so there's not, I'm a content designer, so there's not a ton of numbers, which is good. I'm pretty basic with that. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself before we get started. I'm Elizabeth, that's me. Elizabeth Beasley, I am a senior content designer at Intuit from the identity team, which hopefully you guys all probably know what that means. But in case you don't, I'll tell you what I tell, I live in a small town in Western North Carolina, and so when I go to the bookstore and someone's like, what do you do? This is what I tell them. I'm like, oh, I work for Intuit, TurboTax, QuickBooks, and then usually they're light up about something, and if they don't, I'm like MailChimp, Credit Karma, and eventually they'll be like, oh yeah, credit scores, got it. And then I was like, I make sure that you can create an account and sign in and access your account, and they're like, oh yeah, I do that all the time with TurboTax. And so then we kind of connect, and then we talk about the farmer's market. So it's a brief moment, but that's how I help them understand what I do pretty much every day. So we're all clear on that. And I've been in this identity space for about 4 years. But before that, I worked in sports and entertainment television for 20 years. And that was kind of my previous life. And it was really fun because it surprisingly prepared me for this. I worked at Cartoon Network, which is one of my favorite jobs, writing promotions and getting kids excited about watching TV. Who doesn't want to do that? It was really fun. And my audience was boys 8 to 11, so I had never even been in that audience, so that was kind of an interesting challenge. But I learned a lot while I was there, which really helped to translate. One, when you're writing for preteens, you don't want to use a lot of words, and you don't have a big vocabulary, right? You don't have a lot to choose from. So it's very much like writing UI, UX. You got to keep it small, keep it plain, keep it simple. And then the other big challenge I had was I had to get kids excited about the same superhero story over and over again. Because superheroes, there's really just one story, and the characters are all the same. So when you've got a different flavor of it, you're trying to kind of tell the same thing over and over again, which is a lot like a security factor. They all keep you secure, but I have to make it interesting over and over again, which is really a fun part of my job. And superheroes, they have really basic common things. They're a boy or a girl, if anybody remembers the Powerpuff Girls, I worked on that and I loved that. You have a boy or a girl who is probably an orphan, maybe has a single parent, one parent, or a grandparent that is their parent. Sometimes that parent is a dragon, that's common, so they have those kind of things. And then they have a superpower, which is always to save the world. It's always to save the world, no matter whatever it is they can do, it is ultimately to save the world. And I feel like that's what my job is, right? With passkeys and other different credentials. We're here to save the world and protect everybody. So it's been really easy to kind of translate this over into this new work that we're doing. So I've been working on passkeys for about 18 months, and it's been a really cool adventure, much like the superheroes. I like adventure, so this has been a good one. And so today we're just going to talk about what that's been like for the last 18 months. So I'm just going to tell you stories. You can kick back and relax. Maybe you can relate to some of these. I am a content designer, so I'm going to be talking a little bit from a content lens, but not really entirely. So if you're a content person, yay, you'll be like, oh my gosh, you're my jam. But if you're a designer, product manager, developer, you'll totally get all this too. It should be helpful because I talk a lot about the process. So that might help. Also, this is kind of like my first part of the journey. So this is kind of coming at it from the beginner's mind. But if you've already been on it or shortly, like we're going to be launching in a few weeks, yay, very excited. So, I'm going to probably go through this process again. So this is kind of helping me remind myself, like, this is how we kind of go about doing it. This is what I've learned, and here's what I'll do a little differently. So if you've done it before, this might help you kind of for your next phase. So that's setting the stage for everything. So we're going to go and move on to what I foolishly believed when I started. Much like a young superhero, I was naive when I got into this journey. And I think we started working on it like March 2023. It's been a while. And so right off the bat, I was like, it'll be really easy to find great passkeys examples. I mean, I know all y'all, you guys are smart. Y'all are doing passkeys. I can talk to my friends here. I can find these things. They'll be out there. It'll be really no big deal. Because a lot of times when I do audits, it's sign in and sign out, and everybody's got that, so it's not hard to go find like screens that you want to emulate or that inspire you. So, piece of cake. The second one was I'm like, people are going to love the convenience, because we've been talking about this all week, right? Customers, the value props for passkeys are like convenience and security, but convenience is like massive. That's the beauty of passkeys. It's just so stinking easy, so we love it. So it's like my customers are going to love this. This is going to be no problem selling this to them. As a content designer, I'm going to be working on this registration screen, right, to get people to enroll, because that's like my big moment to shine. And it's going to be like the cornerstone of adoption. This is going to be the best screen. People are going to click it, love it, passkeys all day long. So I was feeling excited about that. And then I got a couple things that I wasn't excited about, like writing FAQs, because I'm a short form writer. I like to write those like short, plain spoken words in the UI. FAQs is not my favorite thing to do, and so I was sort of dreading it. There's a lot of new stuff about passkeys, things I have to learn, things the customer needs to learn. Oh, it's a lot. So I was getting a little intimidated by that. And then the last one was like, holy cow, I have to figure all this stuff out on my own, because I'm on a small team of like amazing people. My identity team is like, our design team is like maybe 25 people. I mean, granted, we have like 200 amazing engineers that back us up and PMs and all this, but we've got this small team, and I'm the only content designer like working on passkeys. And even in the company of like 18,000 people, I'm the only content designer working on passkeys. Like no one wants to talk about this with me. So I'm kind of by myself, and that just made me a little, like I don't have anyone to ask questions of, and like, oh, it's just gonna be like my responsibility. I had that superhero, like I have to save the world by myself feeling. So that was a little nerve-wracking. So this is the stuff I thought when I started. We'll see if I'm not good at these pushing buttons thing like our customers do. I really need like a passkey or something. Ta-da, okay, and this is how it really went. I'm gonna go through these 5 things and kind of debunk these myths that I had. So number 1, turns out perfect passkeys examples are not easy to find. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. It is not easy. Even though a lot of people are doing passkeys, doing the audit was hard. And it was hard for a couple of reasons. So I'm gonna give you a couple of tips that'll make it easier for you if you're doing it the first time or even the second time if you need to go back and kind of rethink things. So I did it in phases, and phase 1, you're kind of going and grabbing all the screens. And the thing that was challenging, you kind of see here, there's a lot of entry points that we can put passkeys, right? So we can put it at account creation, sign in, settings, account recovery. I still want to see like the emails that we get, because that's something I have to create. So there's a lot of stuff I need to get, and I also want to get it in like web and native and all these different formats, and maybe even different devices, like how does it look here and there. So it's just a bunch, and we have a lot of people doing it, but not everybody's doing it, and everyone's in a different phase. So that's where I kind of ran into some puzzling moments, was like, oh, I want to go get passkeys at account creation. Turns out only like 3 people of 10 are doing that right now. They might be doing it later, but not right this minute. So the strategy that I used with my designer, passkeys.directory is a great resource. I've seen it in someone else's presentation this week, but we've been kind of putting together these resources for ourselves to help us, and it's a list of all the people who got passkeys going right now. So it's great to just not have to go like hunt and peck for it and find it. You're like, I got this list. So we took the list and we divided up. We were like, let's take 20 companies. You do 10, I'll do 10, and then we broke it out into like we're in fintech with Intuit, so let's do maybe 10 fintech companies, and then the rest will break into kind of like wild card other things. Like e-commerce was definitely one we wanted to work on. Also some other, like the financial services and other, maybe even healthcare things that have like high risk that will be similar to us. But then also just some fun things we can explore some different language. Like maybe I would go to like Cartoon Network if they have passkeys, just to find out how different people are talking about. Like what does their button say? Does it say add or create or magically, grab a passkey or whatever? So that was a fun challenge. So this, again, our file, imagine it's like a giant Figma with about 20 examples of a bazillion screens. So that's phase one. And then phase two kind of came later, and this is what I wish I had done. As you get into building it, you're like, someone's like, so how are we what metadata are we gonna use for the passkeys? Like, what are we gonna name it? And you're like, I don't know, it's in this giant file I have to go look at, and there's so many. So it was all those little details that I wish I had pulled out earlier. So one thing I'd recommend is like making little collections. So let's say you get your big, massive audit, and then start building small collections of things like error messages, this, metadata, like, did they say it was created or made or nothing, or, like finding out how other people are doing it, and then kind of pulling all that together into these little smaller groups. That allowed me to compare, like, okay, here's 5 or 6 companies, here's how they did it. What's the common way most people are doing it? Because I do want it to be familiar for my customers when they experience it, but then also like how would Intuit do it, right, based on our style and the way we talk. So those are kind of like my pro tips in the audit. Audits are hard in general. I feel like sometimes it's just kind of like work, and this one was just really big. So audit in phases, that's like the debunk for me for number one. The second thing that I think you guys might get upset about is that not all customers care about convenience. Don't tell everybody that I said this, but it's true. Like, I thought, these value props were like convenience and security, but passkeys is really easy to use and really convenient. So we were sold like, our customers are gonna love this, it's gonna be great, convenience is the way to go. But then I had this like little voice in my head, and it was actually like my manager, Candace, always is like asking me questions like, well, we have a lot of different customers. Are you sure that they're all about convenience? So we thought about it, and our TurboTax customers show up like a very specific time frame. They may log in 1 to 3 times to get their taxes done. And then we don't see them for a year, and they go off and forget their password. So password, like remembering their password is their challenge, right? And it's like, seems like passkeys will make that convenient. But on the flip side, our QuickBooks customers, they come here all day, like every day. They have their passwords saved in a password manager. It's auto-filled. It's like passwords aren't a problem for them. They're like, oh, it's no big deal. It just shows up, but I do it. So we really didn't have like these equal mindsets or experiences. And so I said, well, let's go ahead and test, because I just want to make sure. So I did a little user test in usertesting.com, did an unmoderated test, and I started with, I loved the line that Google was using at the time, which was in March of this year, simplify your sign-in. Like, I tried to write something better, and I could not. Like, I was like, y'all got it. Simplify your sign-in is beautiful, it's short. It says convenience, and it's, I don't think I can beat that, but I'm gonna try with some other messages. So I threw in some other ones I tested, mostly about security, and I kind of like went towards this heavily secure ones, like new, stronger security. And I tested it, and it had like interesting results I didn't expect. Turns out my customers love security more. The QuickBooks folks in particular were different than I expected, because I work on a platform, I'm working on account stuff across all customers, so I don't know the products as deeply as like the people who are just working on one product all day. So it was new for me to talk to these QuickBooks customers, and I was like, wow, they're really thoughtful and discerning, and they're like, passkeys, let me think about that, which is a great quality for an accountant, right? I was like, no wonder, this is their job. They're supposed to think stuff through and like be critical. So they were really concerned about the security. And the TurboTax folks were also concerned about the security. I did have like a small cohort of people who were new to TurboTax, so they didn't have any data with us. They didn't have any tax returns, so they weren't as concerned. They were more about like, I just want to get in here and get out. So it was just really interesting to test it and find out. And we've heard from everyone this week, like a lot of people have been testing their content and finding out what works for their customers. And I think that's really important, because not every customer is the same, and just learning this lesson helped me get down this path where I might have just naturally gone with the convenient route, but listening to them, I went with the secure. The other cool thing is like, we're gonna launch with the secure message, because like 75% of the people that I talked to loved it. But we have these backup plans too. So we find out like, okay, well, there's still that 25% they just haven't adopted. Let's go try something that's more about convenience or whatever. So it gives us options. So not everyone loves convenience. A lot of people love security. The last fun fact for that is I did a controversial thing. I was putting in like the subhead. I put like phishing resistant, and my team was like, that's a big word. I don't know if people are going to know what that means, and it's kind of long, and they didn't like it. And I was like, well, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And people loved it. I was surprised. Like they would read it like phishing resistant. That sounds great. That sounds really secure. I don't know if it's because it's a big word. They felt like it was like doing more work or whatever, but people really liked it. So I did leave it in, and we'll see how it goes. If I find out some news, I will definitely share it. So people like convenience, but they also love security, and you should definitely check with your customers to see what they're passionate about. Number 3 out of 5, it turns out that the system dialog, the OS prompt, does a lot of the heavy lifting. And this is a little silly picture. I'm like, imagine me, the lady with the cane, and there's the old dialogue like, come on, let's get our passkeys journey done faster. So this was a relief. And also a good exercise in like kind of breaking habits, like you can use help, you can ask for help. The system dialog does all the work, and this is what it looks like for us. And what was surprising, I mean, look at it there. It's just there, it does all the work right there in the middle. They can kind of verify themselves, and boom, passkeys registration, and then on to like buying your product. Now originally, you just saw I did this really long audit that was a struggle. Then I spent so much time on my content, and I tested it and got it. And then my researcher and my designer come up, and they're like, hey, we've seen this in a few things. And we were like, why don't we reduce some clicks, and let's just cover up your awesome enrollment screen with this like OS prompt and, get passkeys going faster. And I was a little bit heartbroken for a minute. I was like, but I spent so much time. But okay, let's be open to a new pattern, new way of doing things. So we're going to try it, and we're going to see how it goes, and we think it's going to be great. And actually, I think it was Amazon was showing it yesterday that they were doing it. So I think that we're all learning what works for our customer. Also, if they close it, they're like, I don't think I want to do it. They still will get to see the screen. We decided that was a good pattern, and they can either skip or abandon or add if they were like thought about it for a second, want to do it. So they have options. But if we find this isn't working, we can change it and present the screen longer or whatever. But it was just fun to like kind of be open to something new and like let the OS do the work. The other thing that was really cool that I've been hearing this week is, getting to meet the people that have created these system prompts, for all the providers. Like y'all have worked really hard on it and thought just as hard as I have and even harder. So that's awesome. It's going to be like doubly as good if they happen to see both screens. So I just love that. Like everyone's caring about the content. They're caring about helping the customer understand it. And so I felt like I could really trust, Google and Microsoft and Apple like do the work, educate the customer for me so it's easier and I don't have to have them do some extra clicks. So that was a new thing that I didn't expect to happen. So those are kind of the harder ones. I have a couple of really simple ones left to go through. All right, so AI. We're not going to go deep in AI. I love AI, but like about a year ago, I hated AI, and I wanted a boxed robot. I don't need it. Robots, But that was a year ago when I started working on this, or 18 months. I was trying to write these FAQs, and I was like on the internet trying to find everybody else's FAQs and like copied into a Google Doc so I could read them and summarize them and write my own in the Intuit voice and all this stuff. And then we took a pause for about 6 months, which was a blessing, because yay, Gen AI showed up on the scene to do my work for me, which is great. Do the stuff I hate. I hate writing FAQs. So this was a really cool thing, and I'm so glad that it arrived to do this for me, and I recommend using AI for these places where you can really like lighten your load. So what I did, I came back to the FAQs. We took a pause. We're building the experience, working on that, and then I'm like, usually you're like, okay, I got to get that FAQ thing done. Now I've got a tool into it. We use Writer, and it's got some things built into it that help it with our voice and tone. And so I was able to just I had written some, but I just kind of pulled mine in, my knowledge base in. I used some things from the internet. I just let it kind of figure itself out. And then, of course, it just drafted it for me. And then I went through and read through them and said, is that accurate for my experience? Does it sound like Intuit, that kind of stuff? But this made it so much easier. And I'm going to use this forever, like as I work on it and creating more. And then even like your communications. So I need to get some emails and stuff done. I'm definitely going to use my AI magic to make that easier for myself. So that's a secret pro tip if you don't like writing FAQs. if you love them, yay, that's your superpower. I love that. And the last thing is the FIDO UX working group and the passkeys design guidelines are everything. Like this was my cornerstone, like that helped me get through this whole 18-month experience. And I put this fun like 70s camp picture because that is what the working group feels like. It's like being like with this passkeys summer camp of friends. It's so great and so important. And I mean, it's all new for us, right? So we're figuring it out together. So it's just lovely to have a team of people that are also figuring out and sharing information, and they're just like super nice people. So if you're part of the FIDO Alliance and you can join the group, I highly recommend it. We meet every couple of weeks and talk and we work on this, we work on research together and projects together, share ideas, and then there's this active Slack channel where we're always sharing. And you can ask questions and put your ideas up there and get some feedback or whatever. So it's a really great special group. And like I said, I'm like one person out of maybe 20 people that seem to want to talk about passkeys at my company. So it's really helpful to have other people who are interested in this and want to talk about it. And then also the superpower of this group is they did build these guidelines. So now when you go to passkeyscentral.org, you can see the stuff that this group has helped create. And we're going to keep creating more. So, my team is launching this in a few weeks, and we're launching passkeys, and it's rolling out like all of us are doing these kind of phased rollouts. We're learning, we're sharing. So I'm excited to bring new stuff back to the group, contribute more to the guidelines. So it's just been like very supportive to be able to help me do all those first 4 things. So I'll recap. Boom. Now I know this is what I know now, right? If you're doing an audit, plan some extra time and try to organize those phases, right? Like pull out the little nuggets. Like I didn't think about error messages at all, and now I'm like, I know some are going to show up, and I wish I had grabbed more of those. So that's something on my list. Ask your customers how passkeys benefit them, and that might change, right? As people get more familiar with it, I probably want to keep testing because maybe the convenience will become more popular. Maybe it'll be something we don't even know about yet. Maybe it's just all about phishing resistant. I don't know. So that's great. Be open to exploring new patterns and letting the OS do more work or letting the system do it for you. We have smart people working on that, and it makes it a lot easier. Use AI to help draft your FAQs or your communications or press releases, whatever you got that you need to do that's a long form that could take all that massive information that we have on the internet or our knowledge bases, and even just tell it to go look at the FIDO website, and it will pull all the information for you. And then lastly, tap into your FIDO friends and resources over and over, because this is like a long hero's journey for us. We are going through this. We're gonna launch. We're gonna keep going, improving, and so on, so on. So these are your people, like right here. And if you haven't gotten involved yet in the working group or looked at the guidelines, like just start getting involved in that. And you can find that stuff on the FIDO website, and just play along with us. It's really, really fun, and it's helped me, do my job well. So I really appreciate it. And that is it. I'm going to leave you with a slide. If you guys want to connect and nerd out on content or passkeys or Cartoon Network or whatever, I did make a fancy QR code if you want, but that's to my LinkedIn, so we can connect. And that is all I have today. I really appreciate y'all being here and listening.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We do have time probably for 2 questions.
Cool.
We have one online, and if you want to do one in the room, just go up to that mic. What challenges have you had with the UX of passkeys, and are those being worked on? It's a loaded question.
It's so many things. I'll say, just off the top of my head, it was great building it. Like, we had learned so much from everybody else that building it initially was fine. It's more like when we're testing it and we're seeing things like, is that going to work? Is it going to work on this device in this scenario? It's really getting to the fine tuning where we're finding, I'm not sure, or once more people see it, they can ask questions about it. So I think it's just, I feel solid, what we learned from everyone, we could just really be let's all do this together. We have standards, we have guidelines, it's not that hard. It's just more the fine tuning where we're all gonna find out, does that really work that way, or just need to tweak this or that? It's kind of a vague answer, but I'm still I don't know, we'll see.
All right, any questions in the room?
Any other questions?
Yep, just come up to
Is it Court? Court wrote that. Awesome. Simplify your sign-in, and then I had tried to beat it.
I've never felt shorter in my life.
I think the mic stand's just too tall.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Wow.
The only other content person in the room.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I was curious about your audit process and what findings, if you found any trends and anything you decided to implement in your design that deviated from what we'd been seeing in the FIDO working group.
Oh, that's a good question. Thinking back, the trends. I think I saw this in another presentation where they had tested like the whole, like, is it add a passkey, create a passkey, use a passkey? And that was like a really hard one because, you're trying to figure out like, technically, are they adding it to their account or what? So that was something that was like more challenging than I thought it should be. And then I was in a meeting and one of my product managers is like, well, but use is kind of, anyway, we just really debated that a lot just within my team. And we say use sometimes and add sometimes depending on the context of where you are in the experience. So that was like a weird one. I followed a lot of patterns for it. Really, like following patterns just makes it easy for your launch to not get crazy. I think the sub-copy for like explaining what the value prop, one thing that was different now that I'm thinking about is, we did the value and convenience, the speed and convenience kind of everywhere, but when we got to mobile and we were doing that cross-device thing with the QR code weirdness and all that stuff, we realized like a lot of the value for passkeys on native is moving across devices because everything's pretty fast already with like Face ID and stuff. So like we kind of changed our approach there. So a lot of times it's really like you come out with this plan and then you start to look at the little pieces in the context and you're like, I think I could tell that story better here or there. So that's kind of where I started to make the nuances and then test and see. Did you find that for your as well?
I've heard the discussion around add, create, use, and my team is incredibly focused on being accurate in the language, as you can imagine. And so we leaned into create because technically it's created, though I did have an interesting conversation with an engineer about generate, and I was like, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not, Yunji. So we went with create, but we do hear that all the time, and I've thought about playing with it. I was just curious if you had any patterns or insights. So
yeah, I'm still kind of puzzling it out, but the thing I have learned is like it's kind of different for everybody based on the experience you have, and all of our experiences are so unique. Our customers are so unique. So remember, you are a special, unique, amazing person and company.
Yeah, I hate to cut this, but we're
good.
So.
We'll let the next crew come in. Well, thank you for the great questions.
Thank you,
and it was nice
Elizabeth.
to see everybody.